The stars burned coldly above the small human research vessel, Aurora's Reach, as it floated silently near the edge of the neutral zone. Commander Talon Royce, a man neither famous nor heroic, stood alone on the observation deck. The galaxy was at war, but here, in this forgotten corner, he hoped for quiet. For a moment he imagined himself somewhere else, maybe on Earth, staring at a sunset instead of blinking at blinking stars. His thoughts broke with the sudden alarm. The ship shuddered violently. Red lights flashed. A warning horn screamed through the halls. Talon's heart pounded. He had trained for emergencies like this, but nothing prepared him for what came next. "Impact imminent," the ship's AI intoned calmly, almost insultingly so. "Brace for collision." He gripped the railing as the vessel shook. In the distance, the dark outlines of alien ships appeared like jagged knives slicing the void. He knew them by reputation, the Tarithians. Cold, precise, merciless. A species that had conquered half a dozen systems, leaving only silence in their wake. And now they were here. The Aurora's Reach tore apart under pressure. Alarms screamed. Talon could see the crew running, some trying to reach escape pods, others too slow. He wanted to move, to run with them, but instinct froze him. Something caught his eye, a small figure huddled near the cargo bay door. It was a child. Not a human child, no, this one was different. The alien child was small, almost fragile, with iridescent scales that shimmered like wet stone. Its eyes were wide with fear, reflecting the chaos around them. Talon knew instantly that it had been left behind, forgotten in the panic. The Tarithian drones had already noticed the human. They hovered silently, scanning the halls, their glowing sensors seeking out every life form. To Talon, it seemed certain death. Every instinct screamed at him to run. Every voice in his head shouted, "Get to safety. Forget it. Save yourself." But then the child whimpered, a tiny sound that cut through the alarms and sirens like a knife. Talon's hand moved without thought. He stepped forward. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The child seemed to understand. Its small body pressed against his legs, trembling. Talon raised his arms instinctively, blocking the child from view. The first drone rounded the corner. Its cold blue eye scanned the hallway, and for a moment Talon felt certain they would be vaporized. And then nothing. The drone paused, tilted slightly, and moved on. Talon realized what had just happened. It had recognized him as the Protector. His actions had been simple, nothing more than instinct, but to the Tarithians this behavior was unusual, unacceptable, illogical. He guided the child through the debris of the damaged ship, dodging broken panels and sparking wires. His mind raced. He had no plan, no backup, just the child and himself. He could feel its heartbeat against his leg, a fragile rhythm of life amidst chaos. Finally, they reached an escape pod. Talon pressed the child inside, closing the hatch, and prepared to follow. But a loud crash shook the pod bay. The Tarithians had arrived. He froze for a heartbeat, and then he did the impossible. He threw himself over the hatch, shielding the child with his body. The alien scanned him, momentarily confused by the human's choice. Why protect an enemy's offspring? Talon didn't know. He only knew he couldn't abandon the child. A second passed. A third. The silence was unbearable. Then the drones moved on, as if deciding this human was different. Talon exhaled. He had survived. The child looked up at him with wide, grateful eyes. For the first time in this war-torn galaxy, Talon felt a spark of hope. The escape pod launched, shaking violently as it left the wrecked ship behind. Talon held the child close, whispering soothing words he didn't even know the alien could understand. "It's okay, you're safe now. I've got you." Outside the pod, the Tarithian fleet scoured the wreckage, searching for survivors. Talon knew they wouldn't stop. Not entirely, but something had shifted. In that small act of courage, of instinctive protection, he had done something no human was supposed to do. He had earned the notice of an enemy species. The child's small hand touched his chest, clutching at his jacket. Talon realized how fragile life could be, how precious, how easily it could be taken away. And in that moment, he made a silent vow: no matter what happens, I will protect this child. Hours passed as the pod drifted through the atmosphere of the neutral planet below. Talon finally allowed himself a glance at the child. It slept curled against him, safe for now. The human had no idea what awaited them. The mother of this child would come looking. She would be powerful, unyielding, terrifying, and she would notice him. Talon had no weapons, no allies, just a small, trembling alien child. And yet he felt something extraordinary. Pride, perhaps, or maybe it was simply the strange human certainty that comes from doing what is right, no matter the danger. The pod descended slowly, settling on the planet's surface. Outside, the alien world was wild and untamed, filled with forests of towering trees and rivers that glimmered under twin suns. Talon's mind wandered for the briefest moment. A planet untouched by war, a chance to survive. But he didn't dare relax. The Tarithians would come. And when they did, they would find him not as an enemy, not as a prisoner, but as a human who had chosen mercy over fear. For the first time, Talon understood why humans had survived for so long in the galaxy. Not because they were strongest, not because they were smartest, but because they could do what no other species could. They could care. They could protect, even an enemy, even a child. And perhaps that simple, stubborn, reckless compassion would be the key to survival. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Talon looked at the child, feeling a strange connection. Somehow, against all odds, they were together, and somehow he knew their story was only beginning. Because somewhere out there, above the clouds, the child's mother was watching. She would come, and when she did, she would find a human who had done the impossible, shielded her child when every instinct screamed to flee. And in that act, Talon had changed everything. The twin suns of the alien world dipped low, bathing the dense forest in gold and violet light. Commander Talon Royce tightened his grip on the small alien child, keeping close as the escape pod nestled among the tall, twisting trees. He could hear the wind rustling through leaves, carrying with it the faint, unfamiliar cries of alien wildlife. Every sound reminded him they were not on Earth anymore, not on any human planet. They were in a world that had its own rules, its own dangers. The child stirred, opening wide, shimmering eyes that reflected the fading light. It looked at Talon, unafraid, not entirely, but curious. And that curiosity was what frightened him most. Curiosity could lead them into danger before they even realized it. Talon studied the alien child. Small hands, delicate but strong, scales that shifted color slightly with mood. A beautiful, fragile being caught in the middle of a war it did not understand. He had no weapons, no reinforcements, no plan beyond keeping the child alive. And yet he felt calm in an odd way. Humans thrived in impossible situations. That stubborn spark of life, the ability to survive, adapt, and protect was in him. And for now it was all that mattered. Far above them in orbit the mother watched. She was not human, and yet she understood something humans often overlooked: instinct. She was Valira, a high-ranking protector of her species, and a mother whose life had been devoted to the safety of her child. Her kind had conquered entire star systems, and their military precision left no room for mistakes or mercy. Yet when she observed the recordings of the human, something stirred within her. He had not killed. He had not fled. He had shielded her child. It was unusual. Her kind did not understand mercy. They respected strength and obedience. They respected strategy and victory. But the human, he had acted purely on instinct, choosing protection over self-preservation, and the child had accepted him without fear. Valira's eyes, large and luminescent, narrowed. Something inside her, something older than strategy or protocol, urged her forward. She did not understand the feeling, yet it was strong, undeniable. She would see him. She would know him. Back on the forest floor, Talon moved cautiously, listening to every sound. He had learned quickly that silence was his ally. The forest was full of life, birds with glittering wings, creatures with fur that shimmered under the twin suns, but not all life was friendly. The pod had shielded them from immediate detection, but the Tarithians were thorough. They would search, and they would not stop until they found them. The alien child, sensing his tension, whispered in a strange, musical voice that Talon could barely understand. "Safe." He smiled, ruffling the top of its small head. "For now," he replied, "but we have to stay quiet, we can't let anyone find us." The child nodded solemnly, curling against him once more. Its small warmth reminded Talon of home, of family, of why humans kept fighting, kept surviving. Compassion was not weakness. It was strength. Valera's ship descended silently through the atmosphere, cloaked in shadows. She moved with precision, her mind racing. She would not strike. Not yet. This human, this stranger, had done something unexpected, something that challenged everything she believed. She reviewed every fragment of information she had: the child's survival, the human's presence, the small acts of protection. Her people would see this as weakness. Her people would call it foolishness. But she could not dismiss it. Not entirely. Humans were unpredictable. That unpredictability had made them survive where others had failed. And this human, this small, stubborn creature, had chosen to protect rather than destroy. Her pulse quickened. Curious creatures, she thought, so fragile and yet so powerful in ways we cannot understand. Night fell over the forest, and Talon found a small cave, sheltered and hidden by thick vines and towering roots. He lowered the child gently to the ground. It sat up, looking at him with wide eyes, almost as if it could sense the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "I won't let anything happen to you," Talon whispered. "I promise." The child reached out, touching his hand. A small, warm glow radiated from its scales, a kind of instinctive trust that no words could capture. Talon stared, understanding that this bond was fragile yet profound. This tiny life depended entirely on him, and he would not fail. Hours passed. The forest was alive with sounds, yet no threats approached. Talon used the time to study the child, learning its subtle signals, small habits, and unusual ways of observing the world. It reminded him why humans survived: attention, curiosity, empathy. Meanwhile, Valera observed from orbit, silent and unyielding. She watched the human and her child interact. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. This human did not act out of strategy. He did not act out of fear. He acted because he chose to. Her species had never encountered anything like this. To protect an enemy's child was not merely unusual, it was incomprehensible. And yet, the human did it effortlessly, instinctively, without hesitation. The following morning, Talon woke to find the child sitting near a small stream, examining tiny, glowing insects that darted through the air. He watched the child in quiet awe, marveling at its curiosity and innocence. "You like this, don't you?" he asked softly. The child chirped, a soft musical sound that resonated in the air. Talon laughed quietly. It was a sound of relief, a sound of hope. He had faced countless dangers, yet none had moved him as profoundly as this small, alien life. Then a shadow fell across the water. Talon froze. His instincts screamed at him. He rose slowly, scanning the forest. The shadow moved with grace and precision, too deliberate to belong to a predator. Valera had arrived. Talon's heart pounded. He had expected danger, but not her, not a mother. Not a being who radiated power, intelligence, and authority. He stepped in front of the child instinctively, raising his hands in a gesture he hoped was non-threatening. The child ran to her, chirping excitedly, and Valera bent down, observing both of them carefully. "You," she said finally, her voice musical but commanding. "Why?" Talon blinked. "Why what?" She stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "Why did you shield my child? You had no reason. You are the enemy, your species is at war with mine, and yet, her gaze softened slightly. You did not harm it, you protected it. Talon swallowed, unsure how to answer, because it was afraid. And no one deserves to be afraid when they can be helped. That's what humans do. We protect, we survive, we care. Valera tilted her head, studying him. Care for an enemy's offspring, he nodded. Yes, that's what makes us strong. Valera's eyes widened. No Tarithian had ever said such words. Such a thing was impossible. And yet she had seen it with her own eyes. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Valera spoke again. You will not be harmed, not while I watch. Talon blinked, uncertain. You're claiming me, she nodded, her voice firm. Yes, you are now under my protection. No Tarithian may harm you, not your child, not you. You have proven something rare. Something important. Talon's chest tightened. He had survived countless dangers, yet nothing felt as weighty as this declaration. Protection by the enemy's mother, an alien mother. And the child? He asked softly. The child chooses, Valera replied. But your actions have already shown trust, and trust is not given lightly. You have changed something here. The gravity of her words sank into Talon. He realized something profound. He had survived not by weapons, not by strategy, not by luck, but by instinct, by compassion, by doing what humans did best, protecting life, even when it was inconvenient or dangerous. Valera extended her hand slowly, a gesture of tentative trust. The child ran to her, chirping and pressing close. She allowed a small smile, something rare for her species, and then she turned to Talon. You will come with me, she said, not as a prisoner, not as a subject, but as one who has shown value beyond the battlefield. You have earned this. Talon nodded, his mind racing. His survival, his mission, his life, everything had changed in the blink of an eye. And yet, amidst the fear and confusion, a strange, steady calm settled over him. He had done what humans did best. And now, even the galaxy's most merciless species could not ignore it. That night, under twin suns and alien stars, Talon slept lightly, the child curled against him. Somewhere above, Valera watched over them. She had claimed not only her child's protector, but also a human who had shown the universe something remarkable. Mercy was strength, and compassion could change the course of war. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the galaxy shifted ever so slightly, because one human had refused to run. The forest stretched endlessly beneath twin suns, a tapestry of color, sound, and life that was entirely alien to Talon Royce. He had learned to move carefully, to watch every rustle of leaves and every flicker of light. But even in this strange, new world, one truth became increasingly clear. Survival was not enough. To truly make a difference, he would have to teach, to connect, to inspire, not with weapons but with humanity. The child clung to him as he moved through the dense foliage. Its small scales shimmered faintly in response to his presence, a visible sign of trust and curiosity. Talon had begun to teach it small things: how to gather food safely, how to avoid predators, how to observe without disturbing. It was astonishing, even to him, how quickly the alien child learned. Watch, he said one morning, kneeling beside a stream where colorful fish darted beneath the surface. See how they move together, they protect each other. That's how we survive, together. The child mimicked his movements with a delicate grace, dipping its small hands into the water, following the fish with wide, fascinated eyes. Talon smiled. There was a strange power in teaching life, in shaping understanding, in seeing trust grow. Above them, Valera watched silently. She had returned from orbit, landing with precision, observing the human as he interacted with her child. Each day she studied him more closely. Every action, every gesture, every word seemed to carry meaning beyond survival. Her species had long believed that power was only physical, that survival was measured by victory in battle. But here was a human who taught, who protected, who nurtured. It was illogical, yet undeniable. Valera could see the change in her child already. Where there had once been fear, there was curiosity. Where there had once been hesitation, there was boldness. She studied Talon, noting his patience, his quiet authority, his instinctive understanding of life itself. Humans, she whispered to herself, are not simple creatures. They are dangerous in ways we do not yet understand. Days passed, and news began to spread quietly among the younger aliens. Tales of a human who protected a child reached even distant settlements. Whispers of the protector of the offspring carried through hidden channels, small but persistent. Not all reactions were positive. Some Tarithian leaders were outraged. To allow an enemy species into their midst to grant it a bond with one of their own was unprecedented. They questioned Valera's judgment, her authority, her loyalty, but she remained resolute. "This human," she told them firmly, "has done what none of you could. He has shown strength without aggression. He has shown wisdom without dominance. He will remain under my protection. His actions have value beyond your understanding." The council reluctantly accepted her decision. Humans were unpredictable, yes. But this one, he had shown that unpredictability could be a weapon, a tool of influence, a force stronger than fear. Talon continued his work with the child, and slowly he began to expand his teachings to other young aliens. They were hesitant at first, unsure of the human's strange ways. But he had a gift, the same gift that had earned him the mother's trust: empathy. He did not command, he guided. He did not intimidate, he encouraged. One day, as a small group of alien children gathered, Talon knelt in the soft grass. "Life is more than survival," he said softly. "It's about choice. You can choose to protect, to help, to understand. That is strength." The children watched him with wide eyes. Some whispered among themselves, repeating the words. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the lessons began to take root. He taught them to observe, to explore, to laugh, to imagine. He shared stories of Earth, of forests, oceans, and skies that stretched endlessly beyond the horizon. He explained why humans survived wars and disasters, not because of weapons, but because of their hearts. Valera observed quietly from a distance. She had come to understand that Talon was not just teaching her child, he was changing her species. The younger generation began to see humans not as enemies, but as beings capable of empathy, courage, and foresight. Her child, once timid and cautious, now led the group in small explorations. It guided them, remembering Talon's lessons, showing the others how to move safely, how to observe, how to think. And the other children began to respond, slowly adopting the ideas of trust and cooperation. The ripple of influence was subtle, but undeniable. Valera noted it carefully, knowing that these changes could eventually challenge the rigid hierarchy of her species. As days turned into weeks, Talon's influence spread beyond the forest. Word of his presence reached distant settlements. Curious, skeptical adults came to observe. At first, they expected foolishness. A human, unarmed, surrounded by children of their own species. Preposterous. But they saw something they could not ignore. The alien children were thriving. They were curious, confident, and unafraid. They interacted with one another in ways that had been discouraged by tradition, sharing, protecting, listening. They had learned not from fear, not from threat, but from example. Some adults approached Talon, questioning his methods. He smiled, simple and sincere. "You protect your own, but sometimes protection is more than walls and weapons. Sometimes it's patience, understanding, and courage. That is how life grows strong." They left, puzzled but changed. A seed had been planted. Even the Tarithian leaders could not ignore the changes. They convened a council to discuss the human and his influence. Arguments flew. Some called him a danger, others a curiosity. But all recognized one fact: the children were learning, evolving, and adapting in ways that benefited the entire species. Valera spoke last. "This human has done what none of you could. He has changed not only my child but the next generation. His strength is not measured in weapons or orders but in understanding. He has earned his place here, and those who fail to see this will find themselves left behind. The council fell silent. None could argue with results. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but this unpredictability was not chaos, it was growth. Talon watched as the children explored the forest with increasing confidence. They laughed, shared, and guided one another. His teachings had taken root. And in the quiet moments, he realized something profound. He was not just surviving. He was shaping the future. He thought of Earth, of humanity, and understood why humans had endured wars, disasters, and extinction events. It was not their weapons, their technology, or their numbers. It was their choice to care, to protect, to teach, to grow. And here, on an alien world, he had brought a piece of that humanity to a species that had never known mercy. Valira approached him silently, her presence commanding but not threatening. "You have done more than I expected," she said softly. "You have changed the children. You have changed my people. You have changed me." Talon smiled. "I'm just a human," he said simply. "We do what we can." Her eyes glimmered with something he could not name, respect, awe, something older, deeper. "You do not understand," she replied. "Humans are extraordinary, and now this world will see it." Weeks turned into months. Talon's teachings spread like ripples across a pond. The alien children he had guided became leaders among their peers, shaping how they interacted, learned, and survived. Cooperation replaced fear. Curiosity replaced suspicion. And above it all, the human remained at the center, not as a conqueror but as a teacher, a protector, a bridge between two species. He had come to the alien world as a survivor. Now he was a symbol. A reminder that strength was not always measured in dominance, but in compassion. That survival was not only about avoiding death, but about creating life worth living. And as he stood in the forest one evening, watching the children laugh and explore under the watchful eyes of Valira, Talon understood something fundamental. He had not just protected a child, he had protected the future. In doing so, he had changed the course of war, not with weapons, not with strategy, but with the simple, extraordinary power of human choice. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, whispers began. Tales of the human who protected the enemy's offspring spread quietly among alien worlds. Humans were no longer only survivors. They were teachers, protectors, and forces of change. And Talon Royce, ordinary, stubborn, compassionate, was the proof. And in the quiet of the alien forest, under twin suns and alien stars, a child laughed, a mother watched, and a human smiled. The galaxy, unknowingly, had shifted, forever changed by one simple act of courage. The alien sun rose over the forest in streaks of gold and violet, painting the world with light and shadow. Commander Talon Royce stood at the edge of the clearing, watching as the child he had protected, now growing taller, more confident, explored with other young aliens. His scales shimmered in the morning sun, reflecting curiosity and trust. Talon smiled quietly. Months had passed since the day he shielded the child from death, and the changes were clear, not just in the child but in the world around him. Valira, the alien mother, approached silently, her presence commanding yet gentle. She had observed Talon closely, noting every interaction, every lesson, every act of care. The human had not simply survived in her world, he had changed it. And she had come to understand something her species had never fully grasped. Compassion was strength, and humanity was powerful in ways the Tarithians could not comprehend. "You have done more than protect," Valira said softly, her voice carrying the weight of both authority and admiration. "You have shaped the future of my people." Talon looked at her, his chest swelling with quiet pride. "I just did what any human would do. Protect life, teach what we know, help where we can." Valira studied him, her eyes glowing faintly with emotion she rarely allowed herself to show. "That is what makes you extraordinary." The human's presence had begun to ripple across the planet. The young aliens he taught were no longer timid. They moved with confidence, curiosity, and cooperation. They explored the forest together, shared discoveries, and helped one another without prompting. Their instinct for competition had shifted into a sense of teamwork, all guided by Talon's patient, unassuming influence. Even the adults began to notice. Leaders from nearby settlements cautiously approached to observe the human at work. They expected foolishness, weakness, or chaos, but what they found was something unexpected, a being whose actions inspired respect, not fear. His care for the child and the lessons he taught about trust, cooperation, and empathy were changing minds. One elder, a stern Tarithian, whispered to another, "This human, he does not threaten us, yet he changes us more than any war could." Talon overheard the remark and smiled quietly to himself. This was proof of what humans had known for centuries. Survival was important, yes, but influence, understanding, and compassion could shape the future in ways weapons never could. As the weeks passed, Talon began to act as a bridge between the humans and the Tarithians. Through communications sent by the Valira, he shared human knowledge, ideas about cooperation, agriculture, exploration, and philosophy. He taught not through force, but through example, showing that understanding could be stronger than fear. The Tarithians, initially skeptical, began to listen. They could not ignore the results. Their young thrived under Talon's guidance. The changes were subtle but undeniable. Cooperation increased among groups that had once fought over territory. Curiosity replaced fear. Exploration replaced suspicion. Valera watched all of this, understanding that Talon had done what no Tarithian had ever done before. He had taught not through rules or orders, but through choice. By simply acting with care, he had inspired a generation to follow his example. One evening, Talon and Valera stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the forest. The twin suns dipped low, reflecting in the rivers below. The alien child, now slightly taller and more independent, ran along the tree line, laughing as it discovered hidden streams and tiny glowing creatures. "You have given them something they did not have before," Valera said, her voice quiet, almost reverent. "Trust, curiosity, courage, and you have done it without weapons, without threat, simply by being human," Talon smiled. "It wasn't just me, they chose to learn, and your child, they taught the others too. That's how change works, you can't force it." Valera nodded thoughtfully. "Humans are dangerous, but not in the way we expected. Your strength is not in conquest, but in your choices. That is why your kind survives." News of Talon's influence spread quietly beyond the planet. Other species in the region began to take notice. Humans, once underestimated and dismissed as chaotic, reckless, and fragile, were now recognized as beings capable of influencing entire worlds without a single battle. The story of the human who protected an enemy's child became a legend whispered across colonies and outposts, a symbol of hope, courage, and extraordinary compassion. Back on the planet, Talon continued his work, walking among the young aliens as they learned and played. The child he had protected from the start ran up to him, eyes shining with excitement. Look what I found," the child exclaimed in its musical voice, pointing to a patch of glowing flowers. Talon bent down, smiling as he examined the discovery. "This is wonderful," he said. "You see things I never would have noticed. That's how we grow, by exploring, learning, and sharing." The child nodded, and a small group of young aliens gathered around, eager to hear Talon's words. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He was no longer just a survivor. He was a teacher, a protector, and a bridge between two worlds. Valera observed from nearby, her presence calm and commanding. She had learned from Talon as much as the children had. His patience, courage, and compassion had shown her that strength could take many forms. Power did not always belong to those who dominated or controlled. It belonged to those who inspired trust, loyalty, and hope. She stepped forward, placing a hand gently on Talon's shoulder. You have changed my child. You have changed my people. And perhaps you have changed me as well. Talon smiled, humbled. I'm just a human, he said simply. We do what we can. You are more than that, she replied. You are a reminder that the universe is not only ruled by strength or fear. There is another way, a better way. The years passed. Talon remained on the planet, no longer a visitor, no longer just a protector. He had become part of something larger than himself, a living bridge between humans and Tarithians. The child grew into a capable, confident young adult, embodying both species' strengths, the Tarithian discipline and human curiosity, courage and empathy. Together, they explored, learned, and discovered new ways of living and cooperating. Humans and Tarithians began to communicate more openly. Old fears faded. Wariness gave way to understanding. And through it all, Talon's influence remained steady, gentle, and unwavering. One quiet night, Talon stood beneath the twin moons looking at the child, now grown, playing in the soft light of the forest. Valera approached him, her expression serene. You have done what no human or Tarithian has ever done, she said softly. You have changed the course of our world. You have shown us what it means to care, to protect, to teach, and in doing so, you have changed the galaxy. Talon smiled, quietly proud but humble. I just did what felt right. Humans have survived for thousands of years not because we are strongest, but because we care. That is all I have done, care, and it seems that is enough. Valera nodded. It is more than enough. You have created hope. You have created life. And you have shown us that strength is not only in victory, but in compassion. As the twin moons rose high above the forest, Talon realized something extraordinary. He belonged to two worlds, one human, full of instinct, courage, and empathy. One alien, full of wonder, trust, and growth. He had become part of a story larger than himself, a story of connection, understanding, and hope. The alien child, now grown and confident, ran up to him, eyes shining. We are ready, it said in its musical voice. Talon nodded, feeling a quiet joy. Yes, together we are ready. Whatever comes next, we face it together. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the galaxy shifted. One human had refused to run. One child had learned trust. One mother had chosen hope over fear. And through them, humanity had proven what it always had. Strength is not only in survival. Strength is in compassion. Strength is in the courage to protect, to teach, and to change the universe one life at a time. And so, beneath alien suns and twin moons, laughter echoed through the forest. A mother watched with pride. A human stood quietly, smiling, and the galaxy, unknowingly, had been changed forever.